Yeah. Okay. Hilchos nar Besulah, the laws of a young virgin, a young maiden. What exactly does that entail? We'll see. Yesh b'chol chamish mitzvahs. There's 5 mitzvahs involved. Shalosh mitzvahs. I say 3 positive mitzvahs. Ushtei mitzvahs and 2 negative mitzvahs that are from the Because have a fata to give a knas to a man who convinces a nar Besulah, a young girl,
seducer.
Right. If seduces a young girl to live with him, space. She is and if he forces her, he has to marry her. And if he forces her, he's never allowed to divorce her. If a husband accuses his wife of being unfaithful, and then it turns out he's a liar, then he has to stay. She has to stay with him forever. He can never divorce her. So he garish and he cannot divorce her. Notice by Moshe Shemra when he falsely accuses his wife, there's a positive and negative mitzvah. He has to stay married to her forever. He may never divorce her. When it comes to Einus, apparently there's only a mitzvah never to divorce her. By default, he has to stay married to her. But the positive mitzvah of staying married to her forever, that apparently is that we don't see by Einus. At least not as obviously.
But how is that connected to Nara Besulah? That's also by an adult woman.
So we'll see. We'll see that. Don't worry. We'll talk about that. Misha, someone who convinces, like you said, seduces a virgin girl, and we'll see what age is exactly. They're not married. He said, the halacha is you give him a knas, a fine of 50 silver, pure silver shkalim. That's called a knas, a fine, a penalty. Similarly, the same thing applies if he forces her. Also a penalty. Knas is a mitzvah to give him this knas is a mitzvah sation. Remember, it says. The man who lies with her should pay the father of this maiden 50 silver pieces. That's the first mitzvah. Base. What is the difference between convincing and forcing? Mafata means she's a willing participant. And unwilling forcing when he has relations with her against her will. 439. Now, here's the thing. If we have witnesses who know exactly what happened, if she was a willing participant or not, so we know what to do. The question, the halachas are different. It's relevant to know. What if we don't know for certain? We see only from afar. There's the evidence. If she has relations with somebody in this field, meaning in an uncivilized place, the assumption is that she's been forced. We do that all the halachas of one who's been forced. Unless we have evidence the opposite of Adim who said that she was a willing participant. If she's has relations in a civilized location, the city, the chazak is she agreed. Because she did not cry out. In other words, again, we assume she didn't cry out, right? So she's going to say, well, I invited him in the apartment. I didn't invite him for this, though. That's not a good time. What? I didn't invite him for this. I invited him to the apartment for something else. That's not a good time. Because then why don't you say something? Or why don't you cry out? Unless the Adim testified that she was taken for it. So, for example, if he pulls out a sword, he says to her, if you cry out, I'll kill you. So then, even though it's in a civilized place, then there's evidence that she was a Nusa, she was forced. Now, of course, all the punishments we're discussing over here are the minimum punishments. People ask, what do you mean? This is what in Torah, in civil law, a person is honest somebody, go to jail forever. In Torah, just pays a few bucks. This is the minimum punishment. If Bezin sees the need to make a more maximum punishment, they can do that. That's another story. Okay. Gimel. So if the klal is that if Bezin sees the need to impose stricter punishments,
the guy's a rapist.
There's a mitzvah in the Torah to impose this punishment.
Let's say he's
but if there's an issue society, people are not doing this, Bezin can impose a death penalty for you too. All right. What if the seducee, right, the one who's been convinced, does not want to marry this person? Or the father doesn't want to give her to him. We're talking about a case where she's young enough that she's the father is the
boss, yeah.
And the boss. But the whole halachas and Besulah only applies to when she's 12 and a half. Or half 6 months after becoming physically mature, if she's 12 years old. After that, it's a different story. So if Ivan don't want him to marry her, excuse me, or he also the person says I don't want to marry her. He has the option of paying the fine, and he goes on his way. We don't force him to marry her. If everyone agrees and they want to get married, in that case he doesn't have to hit a knas. It's an either or. He rather writes her a ksuba as any other Besulah, which according to the Rambam probably means 200 zuds. Even though when they get married, she's not a Besulah anymore. They were together already, but the halach is that he has to write a full ksuba. That's presumably part of the contract. If when it comes to anusa, if she or the father doesn't want to give her to the forcer, to the raper, they have the option. When he pays the knas, and he goes on his way, even if he wants to marry her, it's not his choice. What if they want? He's not interested. In that case, we force him to marry, and he pays the knas because he doesn't have a choice in the marriage. Remember, it says, she must be a wife to him. There's a positive mitzvah that he marry her. Even if she is lame or she's blind, so she's a leper, and all these reasons why he doesn't, it's a good reason to a person who would say, I want to divorce his wife. Okay, but he has to marry her anyways. He never has the right to divorce her on his own volition. Again, there's a negative mitzvah. He may never send her away. All his days. There's a mitzvah say, there's a mitzvah leisa say. So the mitzvah say to marry her, and a leisa say to never divorce her. The ein loksuba, this rape victim has no ksuba. The reason why there's a ksuba primarily is it should be easy for to divorce her. This one, she has no option of divorcing her. There's no point in having ksuba. Now, even though the ksuba also provides the option if he dies, she reports herself. That's a secondary consideration. The primary consideration is that it should be a deterrent from the husband.
Where's she going to get if he dies?
What should she get? Nothing.
Nothing. Why should she get something?
No, the she gets nothing. That's also why if she wants to sell the ksuba to somebody else and the husband has to pay someone else if he divorces her, it's fine because even though she gets nothing, the fact is he still has the same return. Paying her, paying him, paying the bank. Hey, if this rape victim was forbidden to marry him, and even if it wasn't a curse, it was not say, which is a very light isser. It's the mirabanon. He shouldn't marry. What happens after he marries her? He finds something very lewd that she seemingly was unfaithful. He has the right to divorce her. Shemar says, she should be a wife to him. He should realize if she's a a fitting wife, halachically, then they could stay married. Once she does something, or by virtue of their relations, that she's not a fitting wife according to Torah, then he could divorce her. In fact, he should divorce her. But the Kayin Gadol forces a Besulah, or convinces her. Now, Kayin Gadol has the mitzvah to marry a virgin. She's not a virgin anymore. He should marry her. He has a mitzvah to marry a virgin. Once he marries her the next day, she's not a Besulah anymore. Therefore, like we said before, if there's a mitzvah say preventing the person from marrying the woman, that prevents her. Even though he caused it to happen, still the difference is that we don't make him transgress the mitzvah say because he did this. If he does marry her, he needs to divorce her because again he's not supposed to be married to such a person. Yeah, Zion. So in other words, the issue of a Kohen Gadol to marry a non-virgin is irrelevant who made her a virgin, if it was him or somebody else. Zion.
Funny, but okay.
Because he pays a knas. I thought you were going to ask Kohen Gadol do some wasn't the case, but the truth is, during part of the history of Jewish people, Kohen Gadol was a political office. Zion. It says he may not send her away, not divorce her. Even should come and say since there's a say that comes prior to it. Shemar says, first here it says he has to be a wife to her. Then it says he may never divorce her. It's called a lav, which is associated with the asay. Even though the asay is written first, still it's considered associated. So it comes out, this is a mitzvah asay, which has an asay associated connected to it, which is the antidote if you transgress the asay, in which case there's no malchus. Unless you did not do the asay, as we'll explain in the Sanhedrin. Therefore, Oines transgresses. He gives his wife a get. Now she's divorced, and he did the leisa say of sending her away. He's not allowed to do. So, we force him. What's the solution? Bezin we take the bezin. He was able to leisa say divorcing his wife. We don't give him malchus. We force him to remarry her. In other words, even though I said before, there's no assay of being married forever. The assay of marrying her is ongoing.
All you have to do is say that she's keeping on every double.
No, we don't trust his word. It has to be a raya. Only there's a proof. What if he cannot remarry her? She dies. Or she becomes a kadesh to somebody else. The halacha is once your wife, you divorce, he receives kedushin. There's an isser to remarry her. What if he's a client? A client can marry Grusha. He's a like it, then he is chayav malchus. Say because you transgress, let's say, of divorcing her. The that say can't be fulfilled. Some opinions in the Gemara say only if he did something that can't marry her. For example, he makes a neder, I'm never going to benefit from this woman. And he makes a neder al das Rabbi, which you never take away. Then we say that he can't chayav malchus. But if Shtami dies, it's not his fault. If she dies, that's not halacha. The halacha is if he cannot do the lois say for any reason, then he's chayav malchus. Excuse me. If he can't become the asay to correct the lois say for any reason, he's chayav malchus. The only way to get out of getting whipped over here is to remarry her. Yes. Unless there's Eidim unless there's Eidim that he had normal relations. No hasra necessary. The fact is that it's considered like they're supposed to know how to do this, and if there's as long as there's Eidim that he's chayav knas. Sorry, I said that right. At what age does a girl become someone who you're liable to pay a knas on because of her? Once she's 3 years old, she becomes a begeres, meaning 6 months after she becomes an ira, which is when she's 12 years old and physically mature. So the youngest possible age a person could get out of this category is 12 and a half. If someone has relations with her when she's less than 3 years old, the relation is not considered relations, and therefore there's no knas as far as this did. There could be other penalties involved, busha, other things, but in terms of the set amount of 50 shkolim, that's not implied. That's not imposed. If he has relations with her again after she's older than 12 and a half, or she becomes mature at 16, 16 and a half, whatever it is, is no knas. Again, it says not a Besulah, a young virgin, not a begeres. The begeres is the next stage. So
if you rape an adult woman, there's no knas.
There's no requirement to give a 50 zuz amount. There's nezek, there's tsar, there's boishes, could be ripoy, right? Could add up to a pretty penny. Test. Regardless whether or not she has a father, there's a knas that has to be paid. Although it says in the pasuk, to give the father the money to the father, if there's no father, he's off the hook. These are types of women, even though they are that there's no knas for them. Habageres, one who's older than 12 and a half. Bama is a girl who has the option of dissolving her marriage to her husband. So she's not considered fully married. Because she's not the chesed Besulah. Ba'alamis, and a woman who is incapable of ever becoming physically mature. Ba'ashoita, we're having children. Ba'ashoita, v'acheresh, or deaf mute. So these are all people who we don't know for certain that they're Besulim, even though that's what the assumption is, because they're not capable of guarding themselves. It's very possible they're not Besulim. Ba'alamis, there's no chiv paying knas, because she doesn't have a state of being a naira. She goes from a katan to the gerrit straight. Right? As soon as she becomes clear she's an islandess, she becomes a begeres. And the pasuk says a naira. So that intermediate stage she doesn't have, like we said in Hilchos Hilchos. As soon as we realize that she has, so she's a katana. If we suspect she's an islandess, she's still a katana. When it becomes clear she's an islandess, or she turns 35, whichever happens earlier, she becomes a begeres right away. She doesn't have this naira state, the in-between state. Someone who had bad rumors about her, and 2 people testified. They said that she wanted to have relations with us. To average random person in society today is somebody who is not believed to say that he's chayav knas because he's not honest with me. Why should we believe that he's not honest with you? You weren't a willing participant. You're not somebody who's in someone who's divorced from the complete stage of marriage. Because again, by 19 Besulah, even though she's maybe physically mature, but once she goes to the chuppah, the status halachically is she has considered a bula. Someone who's divorced from kedushin, if she's forced, she does get a knas, and she keeps the knas, not her father, because dafka someone who's so if she never had kedushin, the father gets the knas. Once she's becomes Vedeshes, she becomes the recipient of the money. In this battle, if she's convinced, she does not get a knas because since she became a willing participant, so there's no knas for her. The father doesn't get the knas; she's Vedeshes. No one gets the knas. Now, of course, if it's Be'ertzaina and Be'ertzaina, it's Chiyuv Misa, but that's a whole other story. Hagiyah is a convert, someone who was captured by Goyim, by pirates. So someone who was in jail was freed in this garlic. So in this garlic, if this incident happened, he bas while she's less than 3 years old, she has a knas because we assume that the goyim are not promiscuous with someone who's so young, or even if there is, the virginity heals itself. If she's already 3 years old when she became a Vieris or was freed from jail or redeemed, since the assumption is that goyim are promiscuous and that the relationship with someone that this old is a very considered relations, therefore they are at the status. The assumption that the assumed status to prove otherwise is that she is a non-virgin, therefore not entitled to the knas. Again, it could be a lot of other things, not the standard formula of 50 shkol. What if this Besulah was also on the raper or the convincer? If it's a chiv krisis, so we already said before, married is not an option. It's isser. But what about the knas? A sister, an aunt, an aunt, even though nida is only usher because of the circumstance, not because of the relationship. Okay, if it's been anything else of that nature, as a chiv krisis, or is even allowed with not a chiv karis. So then, like for example, for an example of these type of things. But there's different certain relatives who's not a chiv karis, but it is a chiv lav. Even his but if they warn him and say don't do that, he gets malchus, doesn't pay the money. She'ain adam is a principle. We never get malchus and pay for the same infraction, for the same issue. Therefore, he's chayiv malchus. We don't give him. He doesn't get a chance. If they did not warn him, since we're not going to actually whip it because you can't give malchus. He does for the knas. That's as far as a chiyiv alav goes. He dates mid if she was forbidden to him by virtue of an asay, or she was used to the Rambam in case of the hand, touch them to the safer. When there's that hasra or not hasra, chayav b'knash, and you can malchus. Since there's no malchus, there is a knas. Malchus is only for a leisa sake, not for an asay. Yud gimel. If there was a case where if the Bezdin would kill him, in theory, going for example, Bita his daughter, his son's wife, kids or anything else of that nature, L'chos would apply to any Ashish. Bain history, but okay, Ashish is obviously no option because now Besulah doesn't apply. She's married. Okay, so we're talking about his daughter or his wife or his son's daughter, his son's wife, who is a Mukudeshes only. Or no, better yet, any Ashish, if he forces her, I'm sorry, yeah. But whether or not he's warned, in which case, if he's not warned, he's not chayav misa, obviously, right? We know that you can't kill somebody without warning them. Patum in knas. In any event, he's patum from the knas. It says if there's no tragedy, I guess the translation would be, he should be surely punished. The pasuk over here is talking about a case where a person means to hit Reuven and perhaps he didn't kill him, and instead hits a pregnant woman and she miscarries. So the pasuk says that if no one dies, there's no tragedy. So he's punished by her pay for the fetus, whatever value the woman is goes down in the slave market, being pregnant versus after the pregnancy is terminated. Which means over there, if he did kill someone, he did something which is chayav misim bezdin. He kills a woman, for example, there's no punishment over there. He's not chayav to pay. So, even though killing that woman would happen by accident, over there he meant to kill Reuven and kill the woman instead. Shemar says that same passage earlier. It says that same parasha when men are fighting and accidentally one of them hits the woman. So we say over there if there's no death, then in that case he is chayav to pay for the miscarriage. If the woman does die, he's part of the fifth miscarriage. He's not chayav misa. Still, he's chayav to pay anyways. He's not chayav to pay. I'm sorry. Even though he's not chayav misa. We don't. So it's not either or. By malchus, we said if he's actually getting whipped, there's no knas. If he's not getting whipped because you didn't warn him, there is a knas. When it comes to chayav misa, it's irrelevant. Whether we actually kill him or not, he's not chayav to pay. The pasuk does not differentiate when in case of when there's actual death whether it's a shame, in which case you would not kill him, obviously, or is amazing, in which case you would kill him, as far as making him potter from pain. It's irrelevant. He's potter regardless. But here it says, another passage brings, a person who kills an animal has to pay for it. A person who kills a person has to die. So you don't kill a person for killing an animal. You don't give him a knas for killing a person. Killing a person is chayav. So killing animals is chayav payments. Just like when you kill an animal, it's irrelevant if it was intentional or unintentional. You have to pay for your damages. So when it comes to killing a person, the fact that you're not potter to pay for whatever damages in theory you would think you have to pay, it's irrelevant if it's on purpose or of accident. Just like if you kill him on purpose. In this case, just like if you kill him on purpose and you're chayav misa, you don't pay for any damages, physical damages. Well, so if it's a shegeg, you also don't pay. If the thing you did is a theoretical thing which chayav misa for. So over here, when he has relations with the woman who there's a chayav misa for, even though the agent didn't warn him or whatever it is, the fact is this is something which potentially is chayav misa if there's no payment of knas. You're done. Finally, the Rambam puts this over here. This belongs in Hilchos Sanhedrin, but he puts it over here. Any avera which is a chayav misa, you don't pay for. For example, if someone wounds someone else on Shabbos, he's chayav misa for wounding him, and he's not chayav to pay for the damages, whether or not the misa is actually going to be carried out. If you find out that the eidim are related, if the hashra wasn't good, whatever it is on hashra, he's still part of the teshuvah. If he has a relation with her and then she dies afterwards, so while Bez is evaluating whether he has to pay a knas or not, she dies. So now who takes the money? Patam knas. Has a patam knas? He's patam knas. And it says, the person who lies with her has to give to her. The person who lies with her has to give. Lavia, not to the father of the other naira. Lavia not to the father of the dead one, who provided shetamas kaidim shetam b'din. She died before Bezin passed his chayav knas. Once Bezin passes his chayav knas, he has to pay the knas. If she dies, the person, the recipient, is her Yerushim. Who's her Yerush? Her father. If there's no father, her brother, whoever else it is. Okay. That was a breeze compared to the past few days, right? Even before Meyer.
You went fifth gear the whole time.
Yes. Is that high gear? Oh, it's a high gear, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, the previous prophet. But this one, that was too fast.
No, it's good.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Baruch Hashem. So, I'm sorry, one more time?